Morning, Duncan. I I think
Good
both
morning.
your oh hey, there you go. I hear you now. I'm gonna I'm gonna do one thing on my computer, so I'll be physically in front of you, but I'll be not paying attention. But I'll be
All
right
right,
back.
sounds good.
Oh, morning, Bethany. Hi, Shelby. Hi, Gabe. I just put a practice exam up, and I just looked at it actually and realized that there's at least one really important question on that practice exam that I haven't talked much about in class yet, although I've talked about it in a screencast. Don't have any space to add it to today's class, but maybe I'll put up a screencast answer key to the practice exam to get at that point. So if one of you could remind me to make that announcement before I start class, that'd be good. I'll get distracted with all these people joining. How are things going? You ready to stop sheltering in place? Yeah, me too. I don't know that we'll be able to, but I'm sure ready to. Hey, Cody. Hi, Savannah. I see. I would. I feel like I'm. There was an old kids show. It's got to be dating back to when I was a kid, so it's ancient. But I remember I had this flashback of watching this person on TV saying, "I see, so and so," and looking into the camera, and that's what I feel like. I appreciate those of you who leave your cameras on because it makes me feel like we're somewhat together in person. Hi, Diana. Oh, well, hi, that's Akshita. I think it is anyway. Yeah. Any stories from the weekend that you want to share right before we start class? Just same old, stuck in your house with your siblings and parents. I guess that's better than a story that had a bad. It's getting better than hitting a herd of goats on your motorcycle, like Joseph had for us last week or the week before. Okay, it's class time, so I'm going to go ahead and start. As of course, people will be joining us as we go, but I'm going to start by sharing my iPad screen, and marching us through the Google Slides. And then at a couple points today, I'm going to be switching over to the GoodNotes app to draw out something. A couple things I want to show you. So here we go. Okay. All right. Good morning again to those who have just gotten here. It doesn't really fit with the oligopoly analysis that we're doing, but the news in today's and yesterday's paper is just too interesting not to start with. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the oil in the 1 month futures market, oil in May, this is West Texas Intermediate, which is a grade of oil. Anyway, it's been trading at a negative price. It's fascinating, here most of your lives and even most of my life, since the early 70s, oil has been trading at a pretty high price and has been this precious commodity, and will continue to be important for some time, unfortunately, for those of us concerned about climate change. But at this moment, oil is trading at a negative price. And can you think of why a good like oil, and it's almost, I mean, it's hard to think of another good that would trade at a negative price, but why might oil trade at a negative price? This is, the markets are expecting it to trade at a negative price in May. Why not zero? Why wouldn't zero be the bottom of a price for oil? Does anybody know oil markets well enough? It's really fascinating. Any guesses out there? Just chime in.
Well, right now, Russia and Saudi Arabia are going at it because Saudi Arabia has a lot of oil supply, and they're basically calling Russia out, and they're trying to see who's going to pull out, I guess.
Yeah, and they seem to have figured that out. That was driving things a month or two ago, and they seem to have figured that out, but prices haven't stabilized, even though they've agreed to ease up on their production. They've announced like 20% production cuts, but even believing that, markets are still trading at zero. There's something else besides that. Certainly is a factor, but there's something else going on.
There's just a huge, a lot less need for oil because, I mean, half the world's not driving now.
Right. So a lot of you wrote about this, and my initial reaction to the proposals to write about oil directly were that no, it's an oligopoly thing. But certainly the driving effect now is this collapse in demand because the coronavirus. So why not bottom out at zero? That it's useless right now. Or at some low price? Why negative? What is it about oil that has this market clearing at a negative price?
Once you start producing from a well, you have to keep producing.
Exactly. It has to do with the production technology of traditional wells. The frackers can shut down easily. You just stop your rig, you stop pumping oil, you're shut down. But a traditional well that you sink a shaft into the ground, you put encased pipes down, you tap that field, you use the pressure of the oil itself to in this pool under the ground. That it pushes the oil, like, and you see these old movies where oil comes out in a geyser. Well, once you tap it, it's really hard and really expensive to cap, and then really expensive to open back up. So there's this production that keeps coming, even though there's no demand. So prices have been knocked real low. And since the 70s, the US and other countries have stockpiled oil, just millions and millions of gallons of oil. We have these tanks all over the place. You'll see them if you drive by refineries. There's all these holding tanks in addition to the capacity to process the oil that people are demanding at the moment. There's millions and millions and millions of gallons storage available. And what rich countries have done, basically anybody that's not a producer, and even the US that's a big producer, in cheap times, you just buy up oil and store it so that if oil producers decide to do an embargo, you'll have months and months and months of supply to limit the effect on your economy of an embargo. That an embargo is when the oil producers stop producing. So that happened last in the early 80s, as I recall, when the US in 1979 had backed the Shah, and the Islamists overthrew the Shah, and in punishment to the US, withheld oil. The US was getting one of its allies, I think Costa Rica or someplace like that, to harbor the Shah, who was ill, and the Islamists was release this Shah, or they had hostages. They also cut off oil. Oil spiked real high, and these rich countries said, never again. We're just going to stockpile oil, and so they've done that. But in this coronavirus shutdown has lasted so long that all the storage capacity is full, and also they've used up any spare oil tankers. They're just sitting in the ocean full. There's nowhere to put the oil that's coming out of the ground. And so oil producers are in the position of paying people, or they're expected to soon be in the position of paying people, take this oil that I can't stop producing, I'll pay you to take it off my hands. It's one of these events, along with the coronavirus, that you're going to look back on and tell your grandchildren about. I just don't see it happening again. It's never, I mean, I don't know that it's ever happened before. It's just really a shocking event. And so there it is. It's supply and demand, and a price that actually clears below zero. I almost would have said, a student that solved a problem and got a negative price, I would have told them, you must have made a mathematical error. But here we are actually seeing it in real life. So it's fascinating. I'm pushing my computer to advance the slide that's on my iPad, and I was just talking. Being an economist is a great thing, as you know, I'm sure you can imagine. One of the downsides is when you go to a party, everybody asks you, how's the stock market going to do? And I'm like, well, how the hell would I know? If I knew, I would be out making $1 billion and not teaching economics. But anyway, I was at a social gathering, a distanced gathering around a campfire last night, and people were talking about the stock market and when to buy back in and all that. And I made the comment that I don't think we're done seeing the stock markets decline, even though it's been rebounding. And I could be totally wrong with that. I made a remark in class, got like 20 years ago, and the next day, the student came back to me. A student from my class came back to me. Phil, what? Do you have any other ideas about the stock market? I'm like, no. Why do you ask? And he said, well, what you said in class, I came into inheritance recently, and based on your comment that you made in class, I bought into the stock market in a certain way, and he made like $10,000 over the course of a day. And I told him, no. What's going to happen if you keep following my advice? There's going to be a lot of days where you lose 10,000, and I don't want that responsibility. So I've been very careful ever since. But anyway, I told the friend who asked that, you know, I just don't think we're at the bottom, even though there's this apparent rebound, and I could be dead wrong. But you know, for what it's worth, I let all my money stay in as we declined, and I'm still in the market because I just put everything in index fund and don't like to think about it. But anyway, enough about that. That it does make me nervous, and as we start seeing plans to open back up, I hope when we open back up, we see a vigorous return to, or we see a return to vigorous economic activity, not a prolonged downturn. But who knows? We'll know as it happens, not before. This is our 21st class. Here we are, still in sheltering in place. And I want to do a couple things. I hope you all had a chance to watch the screencast that I put up after our retail game, because that was an important wrap up to the prisoner's dilemma. And remember, a prisoner's dilemma happens when the circumstances of a strategic interaction are such that, first off, every player has a dominant strategy, and again, we're assuming rational, self-interested players. Altruistic players actually can solve the prisoner's dilemma because they care about each other. But rational, self-interested people who have a dominant strategy in pursuing their own interests, if everybody in the game plays their dominant strategy in a prisoner's dilemma, we get to this outcome that's worse than if everybody played their cooperative outcome. So in the retail store game, we saw that in playing it among ourselves, we achieved what many predict as the market outcome of such a situation, and everybody priced low, and that means, you know, if you're a store, you'd rather price high and make a lot of money, but since every store has this incentive on its own to chisel, to price low and get more of the business themselves, everybody faced that incentive, everybody priced low. And that's the outcome we saw in that retail game. I have a screencast to wrap it up. That's a classic prisoner's dilemma. And I've got another prisoner's dilemma embedded in this class presentation, but I'm not going to have us do it because I have too much for us to do. I'm just going to leave it there for your practice. It's one of the homework problems. But I wanted to use that prisoner's dilemma as a platform to talk about repeated games. And in viewing prisoner's dilemma and thinking about sellers' behavior in a prisoner's dilemma, many people have said, oh, even with just a few firms, you know, you can get this pretty competitive outcome, and consumers don't have to worry about a few firms being able to manipulate price. It's because these stores will have this tendency to want to chisel away from one another. And that's the prediction of a single shot game. There's a lot of terminology in game theory. A single shot game means you play a game once, or maybe you play it a few times, but you don't play it indefinitely many times. The problem is, from the point of view of the consumer, that the interaction among retail stores or between Airbus and Boeing or between, you know, a lot of firms that quote unquote compete with each other in the marketplace is that they're involved in a repeated game that doesn't end with any certainty. It might end, somebody might go out of business and it's over, but generally speaking, Boeing and Airbus, they compete against each other month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year, and they're in this situation where they play a game and again and again and again. Same like the stores. I've got a picture here of the streets of Tennisport, and I'm sure you recognize that, many of you anyway. And these stores are there today, they're there tomorrow, they're there the next day. They're in a repeated game. And when a game's repeated, we have, unfortunately for consumers, I guess fortunately if you're a retail business owner, a repeated game, they're not prisoner's dilemma necessarily. Well, each iteration is a prisoner's dilemma, but the incentives facing producers that are in a repeated game are very different from the incentives facing producers if they were in a single shot game. And the reason is that, let's say I'm Chico's, I've got it here, and I'm in a street, and let's say we're all franchises and we have some local control. I know a lot of businesses are national franchises of national sellers, and they just do what the parent company orders them to do. But let's pretend that these are all stores that have some independence over when to have a sale price, etc. Well, yes, if I price low this period, I might pick up more of the shoppers at Streets of Tennisport, and I might have a good week or a good month. But the problem is everybody in the row of stores sees me do this, and they might have a sale the next week, and then the next week I'm screwed. So in a repeated game, your incentives aren't just for the current period, they're also for the future. And unfortunately for consumers, in a repeated game, the simple playground rule that we call tit for tat is actually very, very successful at sustaining cooperation. And that, if you're a store, that means at sustaining high prices week after week after week. Occasionally, maybe there's a little flare up of sales, but the tit for tat strategy is one. It's just, I know maybe you know the term already, tit for tat. It sort of sounds like what it is. It's, if you're nice to me this period, I'm going to be nice to you this period and next period. But if you're mean to me this period, I'm going to be mean to you next period. So whatever you do this period, that's what I'm going to do back next period. So in this case, for sellers, it's if you price high this period, I'm going to price high next period. But if you chisel, if you price low this period, I'm going to price low next period. And it turns out that very, very simple rule of behavior doesn't need any backroom deal between shady producers to say, you know, hey, let's make a deal. You price high, I'll price high. Those kinds of calls are illegal. But it doesn't need any communication. You just see it in the storefront. Is there a sale going on or not? And so the tit for tat strategy, I'll do to you what you do to me, that turns out to be able to maintain cooperation over long periods of time. And it turns out in repeated games, we see sustained cooperation as more the rule, and vigorous competition is more the exception. So that's good news for sellers, bad news for consumers. Interestingly, this insight has been used to explain all sorts of puzzling phenomena. I don't know if any of you, it sort of came up in the movie 1917. There's a lot of war literature on World War I and on a lot of wars, but World War I, there was this long-term trench warfare where these enemies were in these deep trenches, just 50 feet apart, or maybe 100 feet apart at certain places. Anyway, they almost never shot at each other. They almost never fought. And in fact, there's stories at Christmas time of, the French and the German and the British all singing Christmas carols together. And it was sort of a puzzle. The officers are really mad. These are the enemy. We're to fight them. And there's stories of officers shooting their subordinates because they wouldn't fight. But in this case, if we view this interaction through the lens of game theory, these guys are stuck in these trenches. There's sewage running down the middle of the trenches. We now know the Spanish flu hit during 1918. There was a lot of death from illness. They're miserable. And what could make it worse? Well, if the enemy was shooting at you, and they came to this understanding that if you guys aren't shooting at me, I'm not going to shoot at you. And so there were weeks and months that went by without a shot fired, because both sides knew, look, if we start shooting at you, you're going to start shooting at us, and then we're going to be even more miserable than we are today. And so it's been argued that these soldiers were in this prisoner's dilemma type situation, and because of the repeated nature and the indefinite nature of the game, the soldiers that were ostensibly enemies came to cooperate with one another and not shoot at one another. Interestingly, as news of truce came out, so there was, toward the end of the war, 1919, there was all sorts of negotiation between both sides, and there were rumors that would get out to the troops. Oh, peace is going to come next week. Interestingly, when news of peace broke out, so did shooting. The soldiers started shooting more frequently and furiously at one another. Can you think of why? Any idea why that might be?
Could it be we're going to be done soon, so I can give it a little more or something like that? Or
yeah, if the game ends tomorrow, there's no penalty for starting shooting today. I'm not going to be here tomorrow, neither are you. So I may as well go home with a medal to my girlfriend, right? I may, so there's the defecting becomes much more attractive when there's no punishment. Nobody's going to be shooting at you because the war is going to end. So it's only if the end of the game is unknown. If the end of the game is on a specific date, the period before the end isn't going to sustain cooperation because there's no there's no punishment for defecting. Well, then if we know that about the second to last period, well, that's true for the third to last period. Although the whole game unravels. But as long as we're just playing this game indefinitely long, the punishment to defect is very powerful, and it's going to be much more likely to make me cooperate than our single shot game leads us to predict. So repeated games are really important, and the main lesson you want to take out of a repeated game is that tit for tat strategy. That's just the playground rule. I do to you what you do to me. That's really effective at enforcing discipline in a repeated game. And that's, again, when we're talking about buyers and sellers, that's really good news for the sellers, really bad news for the buyers. So anyway, we'll move on from there. Oh, shoot. I just realized that I prepped class beforehand, and I left my Google Slides screen to go do something, and the something was supposed to be to put the handout for this game up on our Moodle page, and I just realized that I haven't done that yet. It's gonna take me about, I think, 1 minute. I'm gonna quick do this. So right now it's not there, but it will be very, very shortly. There's a handout for this game at our class Moodle page that I want all of you to open. I tried to type it into a slide, but it just was too much text on it. Matching game handout is what I'll cleverly name it, and I'm going to upload it to the class Moodle page. Just in one moment, I've got to get to the problem with Zoom is that I lose my ability to see certain parts of my screen. Oftentimes they're the exact part that I need to do things. All right, here I am at Moodle, and it'll be class materials. While you guys are working on this, I also just realized I didn't post the Google Forms for the report that I referred to. So I'm going to need to go do that. This is a file. Handout. A 4-5 handout. Sorry about that. I was just trying to do too many things at one time. All right, I've got it up, but I'm going to move it to the very top of the class materials section in Module 4. So if you're looking there, you're going to see it move around. Well, you probably won't see it move around, but you refresh your screen, it'll be in a different place than if you see it right now. While I'm doing this, I wanted to tell you, one of you reminded me to put up a practice exam. So I have a practice exam up there, and in looking at it before class today, I realized there's in particular one problem that's really important that I haven't talked about except by screencast, and I'm going to talk about it again by screencast. I'm not going to use class time, But what I'm going to put up is a screencast answer key that you should watch to be ready for the exam. I'll try to keep it short, but there's one problem in particular that I wanted to be sure to talk through. I'll put up an answer key tomorrow. So have a look at it. Ask many questions. Tomorrow's office hours, we'll talk about the practice exam and homework. All right, that handout's there. I'm going to go post my Google Forms for reporting while you guys work on that. Oh, except for I need to put you in your groups, obviously. So we're going to do this matching game, and I'm going to have you make up a game matrix. This is a two-person game. It's a single shot game, so it's not a repeated game. I want you to design the game, and I want you to use the ranking payoffs that I showed you in the wrap up to last class. So you just have payoffs that are 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is first best, 2 is second best, 3 is third best, 4th is the worst. And so that use the ranking payoffs for the matching game and then post your games. I'm going to let you guys work in groups, and then I'll come around and check in after I post those Google Forms for reporting. Here we go. So I'm going to make the groups, and as we know, it takes me a while. I'm going to try a different way of doing it, and hopefully it'll be easier. I'm creating the room, so as I assign you, it didn't work the way I wanted it to. What I was trying to do was to have all the groups created, but it turns out it won't. Okay, now with just one person, I can do it. I'm going to open all the rooms, and then as I assign you, you'll pop into the room, you get started. So be downloading that handout if you haven't downloaded it yet, and just start as soon as 2 people are in the room. Great, and this lets me go through name by name instead of trying to hunt for people to find the right teams, and this goes much quicker. Because I know where most of you belong, just off the top of my head. I no doubt I'll make some mistakes, but just message me and I'll fix it. Come on. Oh, shoot. I'm going to make a guess on which Noah is which. So if I screw that up, just tell me and I'll fix it.
Hey, Phil.
I'm hearing somebody talking to me. Did I assign somebody the wrong room?
Oh, no. When I joined my group, there was no one in there, so I thought I got put in the wrong group. So then
Who's talking now? Is that Ethan?
Yeah.
It's just that you hadn't had other people. I'll just assign you again. I think you'll show up as actually you might be able to go back because you're not showing up on my list of unassigned people.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I see
Great.
it.
Come on. My assignment tool is acting up on me right now. Savvy, if you're still here, I think I might just have one person from Team 9 here. I'll go in and reassign you in a second if that's true. I'll go check on that in a sec. I think you're all alone here. So I'm gonna go back out to the list of breakout rooms, and I'm gonna assign you to team 8, where there's just 2 people. So you'll
Okay.
work with them. It's Brandon and Gabe are over there.
Okay.
You'll find yourself moving shortly, I hope.
Can't hear you. I don't know if your microphone is muted or it says
Yeah.
okay
Now you should be able to hear me. I assigned you to team. Oh, I misassigned you. I assigned you to 6, but you should be in 8.
yeah, I got assigned to team 6, so I came back.
All right. So now I've got you in the right place. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Now, here's I think Kirsten just joined us. Hi, Kirsten. Good morning.
I had to leave to register for classes.
Pardon?
I had to leave for a few minutes to register for
Oh
class.
yeah. I should have. I should have mentioned that anybody was free to do that. Another student had to do the same. You're in team 7, right?
Yes.
All right. I hear. I'm going to assign you there. There's a handout at our Moodle page that for this exercise.
Okay.
And then Elena, I still see you here, even though I think I've got you assigned correctly.
It hasn't given me a notification to change room.
It says that you should be allowed, and it won't let me move you, so you're there. So it'll send you an invitation to go to room 8. Is that the way it works?
Yeah.
Tell you what,
I normally get a notification and then you say join.
Yeah, let me. I'm going to move you. I'm just going to pop you into another room and then move you back just to see if that helps.
Okay.
I just moved you into 9. Now I'm moving you into 8 again. And my screen tells me that you're in breakout room 8, but you haven't joined yet.
Yeah, I just don't know to get. I haven't been offered any on my end.
Can you poke around and see if you? Is there usually like a screen that comes and you just click it? Maybe you're already moving because I'm not hearing you. Good. Great. Hey, Malia. Are you guys done?
Hi.
Hi, are you guys done or still working?
No, I just joined because I had to register.
Oh, yeah. Let me put you in,
In group
send you to your room. You're team 7, right? I just need to find my window for the breakout rooms. Can you see the slide from class? Am I still sharing that screen?
No.
Okay. Funny, I didn't stop sharing it. Maybe once everybody left, it stopped sharing. All right, there you are. You get your classes?
I tried, yeah, but I am taking your class.
Oh, that's such a disappointment.
No. I was trying to get into animal ethics to get sustainability and my AIT, but that filled up.
Oh, dang. Well,
My computer crashed, so I couldn't get the last spot. So.
Oh, no. It seems so dumb to make students do that. It seems like they should have a lottery number and you just go by that, not by which order. That's so dumb. All right, here you go to breakout room 7.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. Oh.
Strategy. Does that make sense?
How are you guys doing?
We're trying to figure out how to apply the definition of a Nash equilibrium. Like for Phil, his best choice would be to go see the movie his wife likes, I think, because it would be a good chance that she would be there.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that. So one thing is you've only got payoffs for one of the players. So I would go Phil 1, Lisa 5, whatever, Lisa 4, whatever those are. The other, alternatively, I don't know if you watched the screencast, but if you can use your line tool to put a diagonal down each to split lower left. Let me see if I can. I'll show you what I mean. I'll share my screen and then you come back to yours in a sec.
Okay.
Actually, I can do it without going through the iPad. So I hope this isn't a game that I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to show you. That's another thing that I'll show you later. Do you see the potential entrant game grid now?
Yes.
Okay, good. You don't see that sequential game. That's something else. I'm going to show you that one. But you see how I've got these payoffs with a diagonal down the center? Because then I know the upper right belongs to the potential entrant, the firm in the upstairs. And then I've got the payoff in the lower left is to the player in the lower left. And then I don't have to put a legend or anything like that. It's sort of a nice way to present payoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and then the Nash equilibrium is the no regrets equilibrium. I'll give you that hint before I go check in on another group. So that means given what the other player's doing, no player regrets their choice. And if they regret, they're going to leave the theater and go find another theater. Right? They only have 2 to choose from. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck. Now I got to figure out how to leave this. I'll stop my share, and then I'll leave your breakout room. Good luck.
I got kicked out again. Sorry, hold on. My headphone isn't working. I can't hear you yet.
It wasn't your headphone. It was that I was muted. I've got the setting that anytime anybody joins the main session, they're muted. So I keep tripping myself up by that. All right, here you go. Back to your room.
Thank you.
In theory, anyway. You guys are short-handed. Just 3. You guys doing okay? You getting your report together?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, how close are you guys from having a game and identifying the Nash equilibrium or lack thereof or multiple whatever?
I think we're done actually.
Oh, okay, good. I just was with another group that was still working on their payoff matrix, but so good. You guys are ahead of the game. I'll check on another couple groups, but then I will probably be coming to the report shortly. In fact, I'll spin the wheel and for the reporter, maybe with 50% chance I come up with one of you guys, right? But, all right, I'll get to it. Hi all, you guys come up with your report and you guys ready to go?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I'll check on one other group, but probably be ending the meeting room soon, very soon. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, I think.
You guys got your answer already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead and upload it to the Google form, and I'm gonna announce that we're gonna end the breakout rooms and come back to the group. So that takes a minute. So, all right. Good luck.
Sounds good.
Hi, gang. You guys are all muted as you come back to the main room. So if you need to say anything or ask me a question, just unmute yourself again. I'm going to go check out our Google form and see how we're doing on the responses. So far, only one response. So if you're student 2 or the designated reporter for your group, go ahead and upload that drawing or the game matrix, however you made it, to that Google form. Trying to remember if I have an answer key. I don't think I have an answer key embedded in the game tree, but I'm in the class slides, but I'm sure that somebody will nail it. Maybe all of you will nail it. Did you guys, I know some of you had to leave to register at 10, and that was totally cool. I forgot to tell you that. They have this goofy system where, well, you know it, I'm learning of it, where you have to go and get your registration in right at the opening rather than having a more clever system that assigned some numerical order that was independent of when you logged in. I hate that dinosaur way of doing it, but there you go. They didn't let me make the system. I told you already about the practice exam. Thank you for the reminder, Kyla. I see you there looking wide awake for the crack of dawn in Hawaii. That's pretty good. All right, let me go back and check on those reports before I pick some team reporters to talk to us. We're at 4 reports. Could we? Is anybody working on their report and having trouble? No? Dead quiet out there. All right. Somebody just joined us. All right, let's, I'm gonna spin the wheel for the team. I haven't even looked at the reports yet, so we'll just let fate tell us who gets to start us off. It'll be reporter 2, or if reporter 2 isn't there, whichever of you jumped on the grenade. I'm spinning the wheel. Oh, good. You can see it spinning. This is for the team whose reporter hopefully has uploaded their file and will be ready to talk to us. I can't even read it. It's team 1 is the lucky team. So let me go. What I'll do is go to the Google form and call up team 1's response. I don't know what that. Hopefully I'll be able to see. Bobby, your team 4, it looks like.
Team 1, but yeah.
Team 1 is what I meant. I don't know. I must have bumped my head this morning. All right, you get the honor of starting us off. Let me share your answer with everybody, and then you'll talk us through it. Somebody's got like a helicopter in the background. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think so. Bobby, take it away. Everybody should be able to see your game payoff matrix there, and tell us about it.
All right. Well, I chose like the top left for Lisa would be her best option because she's watching the movie with Phil, and like that's the movie she wants to watch.
Okay.
And the bottom right is the best option for Phil because he's watching the movie he wants to watch with Lisa.
Good. And, how about the knives and the one where Lisa's at the knives out and Phil's at midway? That's Phil's alone and at his less preferred movie, so he'd be at 4. I think you meant to put Lisa at 3 there, right? Because she's alone and so devastated not to be with Phil, but you know, that'd be hard to overcome. But still, she's at least at her preferred.
Oh yeah, mix those up.
That's actually the Phil preferred knives and she preferred midway. So knives. This would be Lisa's 4 and Phil's 3. This would be Phil's. No, here Lisa. Phil's at midway. Lisa's at knives. So this would be. Oh, no. I think you guys got it right. Let's think about it. Phil's at his worst. Lisa's at her worst. No, you got it right. It's 4-4, 3-3. You were right. I was wrong. Good job. Am I? Yeah, I think you're right about that. So one thing I would give you as I'm going to come back. Actually, Bobby, you did so well. I'm going to give you a reward of not having to talk more. If I don't know, maybe you love to talk. But,
Sounds good.
I want to share a different screen with you, and it's for a different game that I'll talk about later, but it shows a convention of reporting payoffs that's actually pretty handy. This way, you know, which is Phil, which is Lisa, you have to tell us, and you could put a label down there, payoffs, Lisa, comma, Phil, and that would work. But it's just extra. There's an elegant way that I want to show you. So I'm gonna share a different screen with you. I shared it with one of the groups that I dropped in on. This is a game between an entrant and a incumbent, and you know, as Bobby, your game was just great because you listed the players, so the player who's the columns and the players whose payoffs are whose actions are the rows. You listed the actions, very good. The only difference between your technique and my technique is that I drew these diagonals across the payoff squares, and then it's the upper right does the payoff to the person in the upper right. The lower left, that's the payoff to the person in the lower left, and it's just a little bit more elegant to do that. So I'd encourage this convention is really handy, and I'd urge you to adopt this, all of you. And you know, now I've said it, I hadn't said it before, but going forward, try it out. It's a pretty handy way to report these games or to draft these games. All right, I'm going to pick another person, another reporter, to identify whether there's a Nash equilibrium at all, and if so, which one it is. And this wheel is spinning. With my luck, it'll come up with team 1 again, but let's see. All right, it is team 4. So let me go back to those Google Forms, and I'm going to. I probably missed a question. I see some things popping up in the chat, so I'll go. That was the wrong screen. Reporter, team 4's reporter, that's Koichi. My computer is loading slowly. Oh, interesting. Okay, it's sort of neat the way everybody has a different way of getting what's on their notes up to the computer. This one's Koichi's. I'm gonna. Oh, that didn't work. That was weird. Okay. That's me doing that, but I'm not touching my screen. I don't know what's going on there. All right, this is good enough. So, Koichi, tell me about any Nash equilibria you see there.
We took a shot and said that the Nash equilibrium was the 2-2.
Okay. By the way, I will just point out, Bobby and Team 1 had it right. You guys, because Phil prefers. Oh, I see. You've just ordered them a little differently. Let's think about this. So here's Phil's at his preferred. Oh. So okay, the payoffs are off, right? Because let's think about where they are. Phil's at Knives Out, which is his preferred movie, but Lisa's at Midway, which is her preferred movie, but they're not together, which makes it 3 or less by the terms of the game. So we would, and also the diagonal should be drawn the other way. So this way, there's nobody up here in the upper left, and there's nobody down here in the lower right, and we want the diagonal the other way, so that Phil's in the upper right, Lisa's in the lower left. Then the orientation in the grid is where they are in the game, and we don't need to explain. Okay, so the payoffs are a little off here, and so by numbers. So you were just guessing.
Yeah, we either thought it was in the 2-2 or that there was no Nash equilibrium because there's always a better option.
Okay, let's just examine that given your payoffs. The payoffs are off, but and upper left is who? Who's upper left and who's lower right in your payoff scheme here?
Oh, so the upper left would be Lisa.
Oh, and And did you use 4 as the best and 1 as the worst?
Yeah.
Okay, that's sort of backwards. 1 should be the best and
Oh,
4 the
shoot.
worst. It's somewhat arbitrary, but that's the way I specified the game. You could specify it that 4 is the best and 1's the worst. That's okay too. It's the ranking that matters. Let's just go with your system here. This one, so Lisa's upper left, Phil's lower right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lisa, they're together, and so and Lisa's at her preferred movie. Okay, so that makes sense. So let's think. You guys said this is given that Lisa's at the Midway movie. Does Phil want to change his action?
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah, he does. So that rules this one out as a Nash equilibrium. Remember, the Nash equilibrium is where, given the action of the other, no player wants to change their action. So once you find that one player wants to change their action, that rules that one out. So that's the way to think about it. And you know, this exercise is to get good at that. It's not to be good already. So no harm, no foul on missing it now. But make sure in your practice that you get better at identifying Nash equilibria. I'm going to just pick another team to report so that we have a little more practice on identifying Nash equilibria. So, and I want to give as many of you the chance to talk as possible. So I'm spinning the wheel again. I guess I should show it to you because that's what I've done before. And lucky team 2, if I'm reading correctly. Yes, lucky team 2. So let me go back to that. I don't think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Go back to my Google form and look for the Team 2's reporter. And look and look and look. Team 2, did you guys put up a report? I see only 8 there. Am I missing Team 2's report? Can somebody tell me? You have to unmute yourself.
We may have uploaded it to the wrong thing.
Okay, who's talking?
Noah.
Noah, could you just share your screen with the class and share your report with the class? Do you have it in digital form? You should. I think I've given you all screen sharing privileges. That's a huge act of trust because I've heard of Google bombing happening, and I haven't implemented security, but apparently the bombers.
I wrote mine's down so it's not on my computer. If that makes
well,
sense.
who uploaded it on your team?
Did.
What's that?
I did, but it's not like.
Oh, it's on your phone, not on your computer or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can talk it out even though we did it wrong.
Okay. Let's go back to Bobby's report, and then Noah, you talk us through it because Bobby's game is accurate. I know that for sure. Probably a lot of you had the right game, but I know Bobby's is. So I've selected Bobby's. Now I'm just going to share that screen with you guys. There it is. So what? This is for Noah Mock. I know there's plenty of Noahs stepping up, but this is for Noah Mock. Which is there a Nash equilibrium? And if so, what is it? Noah? So I think we ruled out one of these. I think we ruled out this one. And by the same logic, we ruled out this one, right? If Lisa was at Midway and Phil was at Knives, given that Lisa's at Midway, Phil could leave the Knives theater and go to the Midway and be at his, Phil was number 2 here. He could improve. So Phil would leave here. Actually, Lisa would too. But we haven't checked these 2 matched situations where they're both at Knives Out or both at Midways. Are those Nash equilibria, Noah?
Yes, because that's their best choice, right? Or no?
Okay, let's Thank you. The reason why we do this is that I can highlight things that are correct and things that are not correct, and that you can struggle around. So be careful. It's the way to solve a game, the way to find the Nash equilibrium is absolutely not to say, oh, well, that's the best payoff. It must be the equilibrium. That will hurt you more than it helps you. And especially if you've got a prisoner's dilemma, which is really the most common game for economics teachers to give their students, although I'm perhaps not typical in that. It's the whole point of the prisoner's dilemma game is that the Nash equilibrium is not the best. So be real careful of that way of thinking. Remember the definition. It's an outcome, and each we have 4 possible outcomes here. An outcome is a Nash equilibrium if no player wants to change their action given what every other player has done. So here there's only 2 players. So given, let's just check this one. Given that Lisa's in the Knives Out movie and Phil's in the Knives Out movie, does Phil want to change, Noah? Leaving the Knives Out theater and getting Phil and going to the Midway movie, would that make sense for Phil to do? Is that a yes or a no?
No.
No, because 4 is the worst and 1 is the best. Phil's in his best situation there. How about Lisa? Let's check her. Given that Phil's in Knives Out and Lisa's in Knives Out, would Lisa want to change and go to Midway? And so we'd just be comparing this situation with this situation. Would Lisa want to move?
No.
No. So bingo, that's a Nash equilibrium. So I can't draw on this given the, if it's just from my iPad, I'd be able to draw on it, but I'm on my computer, not my iPad. And then by the same logic, this midway is a Nash equilibrium. And I'll leave you guys to check that for yourself. Here's another question, and I'm going to just ask this while we still are looking at Bobby's report. I'm just going to ask this of some spinny wheel generated team member, and I've hit a number of the teams already. I can't even remember which ones. Hopefully this is somebody different. Team 3. That's somebody different. So team 3 reporter. Does anybody have a dominant strategy here?
No.
And explain. You flipped a coin and got no, but the key is how you explain it.
Because if they were both to leave the Nash equilibrium, they would, like, it wouldn't be any better and wouldn't be any better for them, I guess.
Is that the definition of a dominant strategy? What's the definition of a dominant strategy? Putting you on the spot here, Nico.
I'm trying to remember. I don't exactly remember what it means.
Does anybody want to chime in? It doesn't have to be from team 3. Does anybody want to refresh Nico's memory with the definition of a dominant strategy? A player has a dominant strategy if, complete the sentence, anybody? A player has a dominant strategy if, no matter what the other players do, that player's best strategy is always the same. That's the key. So back to you, Nico. Does either player have a dominant strategy? And explain your answer in terms of the definition of a dominant strategy. That's the way you would always do it, right? You'd explain a Nash equilibrium in terms of the definition of a Nash equilibrium.
Yeah. No, or because it'd be the same, if anything.
I'm not following you. So I'll just start and you finish. Phil does not have a dominant strategy because his best choice, and you go ahead and finish that sentence,
would be to stay with the knives.
No, quite the opposite. His best choice changes with Lisa's action. If Lisa's in the Knives movie, Phil wants to be in the Knives movie. But if Lisa goes to the Midway movie, Phil's best choice would be the Midway movie. So because his best choice changed, depending on what Lisa did, there's no dominant strategy.
Okay.
For there to be a dominant strategy, the best choice would be the same, whatever the other player did.
Mm-hmm.
So practice that one. That's for all of you. That's I've never given a test on this unit without asking that question and the one about Nash equilibria, and there's a lot of students that miss that. So don't you be one of them. And I'm not just talking to Nico, I'm talking to all of you. Okay. So thank you guys again for your good humor and in treating this effort seriously, even though we're online, and in talking through your answers with, without fear of being right or wrong. That really makes it work. And the mistakes you're making in practice are mistakes that I see every time I grade a student work in this unit. Just now is the time to make the mistake, take a note, and then make sure come Thursday and then on the final that's when you want to get it right. So good job, all of you. Let's move on. I want to stop sharing my screen. And any questions just before I move on? Because I'm going to be talking a little bit over the next unit. I need to share my screen to get to the, let me go to this chat where there were a bunch of, Ethan, I got you. I wasn't muted, just you, good, you guys helped. So thank you for covering for me as I blathered on without looking at the questions, good job. All right, here I go to, there's another one. The final will not be optional. I see Dylan's question. And actually, the professors that are offering an optional final are violating express College of Arts and Sciences policy. So that's not allowed to make a final optional. But no, I'm a big believer in the learning value of preparing for a test, not so much of doing the test, but preparing for the test, you learn a ton. And actually doing the test and getting feedback on your answers is how you learn a ton. The score, I'm not so sure is important. But it has to be there because it's the incentive to do the work. Can we have the whole class period? Maybe. I haven't finished writing it. I'm definitely thinking about slimming it down so that to make sure you have enough time. Some people were done in like 20 minutes, but other people I know ran out of time last time. So I would rather err on the side of leaving you too much time than leaving you too little time. So I will be thinking about that as I set the time amount. All right, let me get back to sharing. Picked the wrong window. I was talking instead of selecting the right screen. There we go. Okay, and I see there was another thing popped in the chat, so I'll get to that. I wanted to show you, I've got this prisoner's dilemma practice problem in the slide presentation. I'll just leave it there. I know it's on the homework too. Think that through. You can email me any questions about that. I'll just highlight that this is a prisoner's dilemma. And remember the definition of a prisoner's dilemma. There's two things that I mentioned at the very beginning of class that are true about a prisoner's dilemma that will be important and will make this an easy problem. So I won't say anything more because I'd give it away, but think about that. What I wanted to do was to spend a few minutes talking about sequential game. And these games that we have, this is a incumbent entrant. If you've looked at the practice exam, you'll see this one on there. The two players here are the potential entrant and Alcoa. We're talking about production in the aluminum industry. And Alcoa could either expand its capacity, I just have that expand plant, or not. And then a potential entrant could enter or not. And I've got these ranking payoffs, rank order payoffs here. And when I present a game in this form, this form is useful for a simultaneous game. In other words, both players make their choices without knowledge of what the other player did. And so that's the games that we've been thinking about. But there's a really important class of games where players make their choices in a sequence. In other words, somebody moves first and the second mover gets to see what the first mover did and gets to alter their choice accordingly. And so we need a different way of thinking about those games. They're really important. So we think about them differently, we analyze them differently. I want to just talk you through how to do that. And I'm going to talk you through in the context of this incumbent and entrant. So I'm going to switch, you're on screen mirroring of my iPad. I'm going to go to my Good Notes app, and I had it open to a window, but it decided that it would want to change which window. So we've got this sequential, let's say that Alcoa gets to decide whether to build a big plant or build a small plant, and then the entrant then and only after Alcoa is the incumbent, that means the one that was there first, only after Alcoa has chosen does the entrant decide. The game, well, I'll let you do the practice exam and I'll tell you the answer, but you'll see that whether there's a Nash equilibrium, and if there is, what it is, in the simultaneous game, you'll see that that changes when we go to a sequential game. So let's draw this out. The way we do it is, the way we draw a sequential game is we label our nodes just to say which is first, which is second, or which node is which, so we can talk about them. Right above the player name, right above the node that tells us where we are in the game, we write the player name, and then we write branches. This is called a game tree. This is the extensive form of the game. And Alcoa has two choices, so we draw two branches. You'll see in the prep, I've got a practice problem where there's 5 choices. That's the Harry and Sally game from your homework. But Alcoa can choose to build large plant, excess capacity, in other words, or a small plant. The idea of this game, the economics behind this game, is that if Alcoa builds way more capacity than it needs to produce, it's signaling, the company is signaling to the entrant that, hey, you come in, I'm just going to produce like crazy and I'm going to drive price down to the point where you can't survive. But if Alcoa builds a plant that's just big enough for its monopoly output, well, then the entrant says, hey, I can come in. What are they going to do? They don't have the capacity to produce more and drive down price and run me out. I'm jumping in. So that's the economic logic of the way we're drawing this game and making these payoffs. So we've got 2 more nodes here. I'll post this. It's good practice to write it in your notes as we go, but I'll post it into the class slides after class. Now the entrant can choose. So the entrant gets to see whether the entrant's at node B, and then the enter gets to choose enter or don't enter. That's the choices at either node B or C. Enter, don't enter. And then by convention, we also label these payoff nodes. This just if we're talking about a game, we can just say, oh, we're at node D. And we all know where in the game we are. So I'm just labeling them. And then finally, payoffs. And the payoffs in a sequential game are always ordered by the first move. So Alcoa went first and Entrant went second in their first 2 moves of the game. And in this game, there's only 2 moves, but we might have a really complex game where different players move different times. It's always based on their very first move. So we see Alcoa move first, then Entrant. So our payoffs, I don't need to write any legend. It's simply that, look at that. That's sort of cool. So I simply have to put Alcoa's payoff, comma, the Entrant's payoff. So let's do that. If Alcoa builds a large plant, it spent a lot of money on capacity, and then the Entrant entered, which Alcoa is not a real fan of either, and that would be Alcoa's worst. And for the Entrant, I can't remember how I had these. For the Entrant, they entered, and Alcoa has the large plant to run them to the ground, and that's really the worst for them. They've spent all that money on entering, and they've been creamed. On the other hand, Alcoa could build the large plant, and the Entrant didn't enter. That's Alcoa doesn't want competition and doesn't have competition, but it had to build the large plant. We'll make that the second best for Alcoa. And as far as the Entrant, it's not the first best, but it's not the worst. That the Entrant at least has the satisfaction of knowing that Alcoa had to build excess capacity to try to keep them out, and they didn't enter, they didn't lose any money. All right, let's think. Alcoa builds the small plant, and if the Entrant doesn't enter, that's Alcoa's first best, because they didn't have to spend the money on the big plant and they didn't face competition. But we're going to say that's the worst, the second worst outcome for the Entrant, because there was this opportunity that was sitting out there and they didn't take it. And then finally, building the small plant and then facing entry. Actually, I've got these payoffs wrong. That's the worst for Alcoa. Has to watch an Entrant come in and not be able to do anything about it. That's the worst for Alcoa for sure. So I noticed I changed that payoff. And then for the Entrant, that's the best, because they get to come in. Alcoa has no ability to punish them, and they make a big share of the profits to be had in the industry. So the profits go down because now there's 2 instead of 1 firm, and they're competing at some level, but they're still a lot better than the Entrant's next best opportunity. So that's our game. So we have the payoffs. Now we've got to think about how we solve a sequential game. And we solve a sequential game by pruning the game backwards. So this is one of the key insights of game theory, is if you're in a strategic interaction with somebody, don't think through the game from the beginning to the end. No, think it through from the end back to the beginning. Once you have the ability to anticipate your rival's reaction to what you're doing, you can make better choices about what you do. And I will tell you that game theory was one of my specialties in grad school. Everybody else from that specialty is teaching negotiations for MBA programs. And MBA programs, the negotiations class, how you behave in a strategic interaction, that's like a critical course in that curriculum, and it's a really cool course. It's just straight game theory. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this game. To do that, I'm going to change my pen color to blue, and what we want to do is to work from, I'm going to go back to my pointer. We're going to work from the farthest out branches back toward the beginning of the game. And whether we had a 2-tiered game or a 10-tiered game is always the way you do it. So back to my pen, I'm going to choose blue. Let's suppose we're at node B, and the entrant is thinking about whether to enter or not enter. Well, notice that node B, if the entrant enters, then the entrant gets a payoff of 4, which is its worst. But if they don't enter, they get a payoff of 2, which is its second best. So in this situation, we can just rule out the possibility that the entrant's going to enter. That's not in its interest. And so the entrant is not going to enter. We can lop off this branch from our game tree. We don't have to consider it because the entrant isn't going to do that. This is a rational, self-interested approach. All right. Now we've gotten one of the outer branches pruned. We've pruned that pair of branches. Now let's consider this one. If the entrant faces the situation where Alcoa has built the small plant, the entrant could enter and get its first best, or not enter and get its third best. Well, obviously, getting its best is better by definition. So we can prune this not entering branch away from the tree because it's not going to happen. We're at node C. We know the entrant's going to enter, and we're going to be here. So we don't even have to consider this one anymore. Just like we lopped this one off, we can lop this one off. All right, so now we're done with the furthest out branches. Now we jump back to, in this case, the only other branch to think about. But in some games, it's really complex, but we would follow the same practice. Let's think about this one. Now, Alcoa, if it now has thought through the game, thought through what the entrance activities, the entrance choices are, Alcoa could build a large plant, and if it does, Alcoa knows that it'll get its second best payoff. Or Alcoa could build a small plant, and if it does, since it's correctly anticipated the entrance action, it only considers this branch. Alcoa knows if it builds the small plant, it's headed for its worst outcome. So you get your second best or your worst. Not a tough choice. Alcoa would not consider building the small plant. And this is what we see, by the way, in the industry. When Alcoa was brought up on antitrust charges, accused of unfairly preserving its monopoly practice, Alcoa had enough bauxite locked up by these exclusive contracts to satisfy its production needs for 1,000 years. No firm carries 1,000 years of inventory, only a firm that wants to keep out all its rivals. Anyway, so building excess capacity is a way to keep your rivals out. It both, in Alcoa's case, locked up a key input, but it also signals to your rivals that you're ready to just overproduce and run price close to zero and kill your potential entrant. All right, so that's how we solve a game tree. I'm gonna change my screen now back to our class slides. And we just did that. I did the sequential game overview, and I had put this game up already, and notice I got my got a pointer here too. No, that lets me write on things. It doesn't let me do a pointer. Too bad. All right, so there's the solved game. I have another sequential game that's like the homework, and I've got it there for you, and I'm going to let you practice. The one thing I would give you a hint on is to, the way that Frank's got it in the homework is sort of a little bit strange. I would have Harry moving first with the offer, and then have 5 different branches. He could offer 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 quarters. And then Sally can either accept or reject. She just has 2 branches off each of those nodes. If you started the homework, you know what I mean. But if you haven't, that probably didn't make much sense. But you'll see when I get to the I'll put up an answer key for this one, but you'll see what I mean when you get to the homework. All right, I have a game that's a monitoring game. I think this one's also from the homework. I was trying to make your homework a little bit easier by taking a couple off the table. I'm going to put you in your groups. We only have 7 more minutes of class, but what I'd like you to do is to develop the sequential game for this situation where this owner of a business, they want to offer a remote, they want to start a remote location. You know, when I put you into groups, you're going to lose this screen, so you might want to do a screen capture or something. Anyway, the business owner does pretty well if the manager of the remote location is honest, but the business owner doesn't do that great if the manager is an embezzler. And in this first, I have a second iteration of this game that we probably won't get to in class time, but I'll put a wrap up at the end of the slideshow this afternoon. But we assume that everybody's an embezzler if they won't get caught, but they're honest if they know they'll get caught. But anyway, this situation, there's this embezzler that could earn big money if they embezzle, but obviously the business owner gets hurt. So everybody take a screen capture or something, or write down the details, and I'm going to put you in your groups to write up a game tree, and I'll put up a Google form for reporting for 4.8. I'll move it to the very top of the learning materials for module 4. So here we go. I'm going to send you into your groups right now.
is paying the person a weekly salary of 2,000, and earning an economic profit of 800. And then the other option is like when the person is being dishonest, like the worker, and then they're taking some of the money, so they're earning 3,100.
How are you guys doing?
We're working through it.
All right. I see we're running out of class time here. We're out of class time, so just whoever student 4 can just put up whatever they got, and
okay.
Put up the answers after my second class this afternoon.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you, Phil.
See you, Joseph. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. Thanks for joining us today.
Yep.
Have a. I'll be around my office hours tomorrow, and I expect I see a lot of you. Hey, Shelby.
Hello. Okay, I do have a quick question if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all.
Okay, so I'm still trying to understand. I kind of understand that you want to work backwards at the tree, and like here, I'll hold up my screen if it will focus. So like
Okay,
you want to
good.
start over here and then work your way backwards in like
Yeah.
the manager's point of view
Mm-hmm.
for this specific problem, right? Okay, so if you were to start like at the end, she would most likely choose where she's making the most amount of money, which would be the $3,100. Right here.
The manager would choose that, right?
Yeah, so the manager would like want to choose the 3,100, which would cause her to be dishonest, correct?
Okay. Yeah, let me just give you a pointer on how to write these games. I'll answer your question, but you should always write the payoff. Since the owner gets to choose first whether to open or not, the payoff should always be written in the owner payoffs, comma, the manager's payoffs. But don't read it now. But you're absolutely right that the way we predict using the rational self-interest model, we'd predict that the manager would embezzle because that makes her better off than not embezzling.
Okay, got it.
And that's, well, I have a follow-up game. I was thinking we could get to both of them. You'll see when you look at the class slides this afternoon, you'll see I have a follow-up game that says, suppose the manager is like devoutly religious, and it would be, she'd rather, have her eye poked out with a toothpick than to embezzle, and how would the game change? So, in fact, we care more than just money. We care about being good people, and most of us do.
Okay.
And that really changes the game. In fact, there's an economics of religion that it's a whole discipline, and it's really neat. But I mean, well, I find it very interesting anyway. And the whole premise is that there is no God. That's the economics of religion. We're all these social scientists and godless people. But so why do humans devote so much resources to religions? And every successful human society has a religion. And why it takes up so much time and so much money of people. If you think of the Catholic peasants donating to build these fantastic cathedrals, and in ancient times, I studied and lived in Spain, and just at a time of tremendous impoverishment, they're building these fantastic structures on the backs of the poor. Why? Why wouldn't a society that didn't have that tax on it succeed? Well, the reason seems to be is that being religious is sort of it's a hard to fake signal of being a moral person, and that when you're in a society where people are trustworthy, trades happen. Specialization in trade is a lot easier to sustain, because if everybody can be trusted, we can do business with them much more easily. And then the human societies where people specialize in trade are just much more rich and successful than the societies where they don't. So the conclusion of economics of religion is that, as expensive as it is, this ability to signal to each other that we're trustworthy and are going to be honest in a exchange situation is so valuable that every successful human society has some form of religion or another. And anyways, it's that commitment device, the commitment to acting honorably, is solved by morality, by social convention, that I'm going to be a good person.
Okay, but then in that like specific problem, it would just be based off the money most likely.
Right. Once you see the rational self-interest in the determination, in the specification of the problem, that rational self-interest, that's an extreme set of assumptions that's being invoked there. And people are going to act in according to their own narrow self-interest in that situation without thinking about the long-term ramifications. And of course, that's not
perfect.
But that's the sort of most naive kind of economic model. And usually they're just, well, the way I use that model is to try to set it up to then get to a point of saying, well, people aren't really like that. And, what would it look like if people cared about each other or were, had a way of committing whatever.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Have a good day.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey gang, I see you're still hard at it. Are you just chit-chatting, or if I ended the sessions, would I inconvenience you?
No, I think
we just
we're
finished.
almost done. Can you take a look at this real fast?
Sure.
Okay.
We're just a little confused on what like the labeling was.
Okay, let me check out Gabe's. Oh, nice. I like the way you superimposed that screenshot in it too. All right, so couple things, just finer points, I guess. The node would be labeled A, and above the A, we wouldn't put new office, we'd put owner, because that's the person. And then on each branch, on the top branch, say, we'd put open a new branch, and on the bottom branch, we'd say, don't open a new branch. And then the next layer of nodes would be B and C, and then above those, we'd say manager gets to decide, manager. I guess if they don't open, they don't hire a manager. So really it's only one. The open should be written along the branch, not on the, you've written open where the node would be, right? There you go. So then So then the manager gets to choose, and they could manage honestly or embezzle, right? That would be their two actions, the manager. And then the payoffs would be written. You don't, I would, because we have such elaborate information on profits, I would use that information for the payoffs. So the opening the business, and if the manager chose to manage honestly by the terms of the problem, that person would make $2,000, and the manager would make $800. So the payoffs would be 800, 2,000 for that open and manage honestly. But then the open, but then the manager manages dishonestly, those payoffs should be negative 600, 3,100, right? And so then, and then the bottom branch is just don't open. It would be 0, 0. The game ends there, right? Nobody's any different than their next best opportunity because they didn't open the branch. So, I misspoke. The payoffs for the manager should be 1,000 and 2,100 because they've got a second best opportunity that is paying them 1,000, right? We know that from the term. Sorry about that. So that.
Wait, so the salary is 2,100?
Well, the weekly salary is, the gains from embezzling are 2,100 because they have $1,000 that they'd be earning in their next best opportunity given in the problem. So we write all the payoffs relative what you'd be doing in your next best opportunity. So when they say the owner would make an economic profit of 800, that 800 is in addition to the returns from that they're making in their next best opportunity. Okay. So I wish, actually, you know what? I can quickly share a game on my screen. There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen in a moment. Well, I'll share it right now. It's
Hey, Reese. If later I can't find my phone because I probably won't remember, it's by my Bible, by my TV.
all right. So here we've got it, and let me just show you how this game would go. I've got my. I'm using
I also
my.
have to go. I have another class.
Okay, I'll have the answers up this afternoon, Elena.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. So you'd start with node A. That's the first mood, and it's the owner that makes it. And then open. And I'm just going to abbreviate things because I don't want to keep you guys. Then the next set of nodes would be the manager or the end of the game. So manager, we'll write that, and this C would be a end of the game, 0, 0. That game just is over.
So only branch B is expanding then.
Yeah, there's only a choice for the manager to make if they're at B. Good. And see how the labeling the nodes lets us go right to the node we're talking about because you were able to say node B, right? And we all knew what that was. That's why we use that convention. And then I'm just going to use shorthand, honest and embezzle. And then we'd be at an end of the game D or an end of the game E. So if the manager manages honestly, the owner makes 800 in economic profit, and the manager does 1,000 better than their next best opportunity. So we're gonna take that 2,000 salary less the 1,000 from the next best opportunity. They're 1,000 better off. By the same logic, if the manager embezzles, the owner loses 600, and the embezzling manager, they get 3,100, but they had to give up this opportunity in the economy there where they would have made 1,000. they're doing 2,100 better than their next best opportunity. That's what I was trying to say. All right, so that's how we draw the payoffs. And then to solve the game, we just consider this node. We'd see the manager that embezzled would get 2,100. If they manage honestly, they'd get 1,000. Given the narrow assumptions of the rational self-interest model, we'd rule out that person being honest. There's nothing to prune from node C. So then we move back, and the owner knows if they open it, they're going to lose $600. If they don't open, they lose zero. Zero is better than negative 600. So we prune that, and then we predict that the way this game ends is with no branch being opened. And then you'll see when you look at the class slides that I have another game that supposes that the manager is devoutly religious, and that embezzling would cause them to suffer extreme anguish. And in that case, they'd manage honestly, and business would actually get done.
But wait, wouldn't you want to open up a new branch and have an honest manager if your economic profit is 800?
You would, but because you have to rely on this manager who can, and in the terms of this game would embezzle, then you'd rather not open at all rather than create this opportunity that this embezzler will just steal from you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, we don't know if he or she is going to be honest, or they're going to embezzle the money.
Right, and in fact, we know we assumed a very narrow definition of rational self-interest. So under that assumption, the person would embezzle. And so the next and last activity that I was gonna have for you, and I'll present it, it'll be in the slides this afternoon, so make sure you check that out before the test day comes for sure. I will present a case where the manager has the ability to signal that they're honest.
Okay.
Okay. That's if you read well, I know you read the material, but if you think of the material in chapter 9, it's the material on commitment, the importance of commitment devices when the ability to monitor is limited. That's where I'm going with this pair of activities.
Okay.
All right, good. We'll see you. I have office hours tomorrow, and I'll just keep them going as long as people have questions. The test.
What time is your office hours tomorrow?
2 to 4 Pacific time. So Hawaii time, I guess that's 11 to 1.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you very much, Phil.
Right, bye. Thank you, guys.